So you're learning a new language, but the trouble is you're struggling to speak. Even with all that input, you're listening, reading, trying to repeat some stuff back, get the prosody, the kind of the way the language flows, but you're stumbling over those words. Really, really common beginner problem. The good news is there's a solution to this, and I'm going to talk to you about that today. It's called the Conjugate method of language learning, and it's the same techniques and style of approach to learning as powerlifters use when they're trying to improve their lifts and make gains every week. So if you want to avoid plateauing and you want to continue to make gains and speak brilliantly, then you need to follow this system. It is 4 steps, 1 system, and today I'm going to break the protocol down and explain exactly how to do it. I think you'll like this. Before we go any further, let me explain why the conjugate method is so useful for powerlifters, particularly elite powerlifters. Rather than trying to do 20 different exercises in the gym, they tend to stick to a core set of exercises, but they change the dynamics of each exercise. And this is where this conjugate language learning method comes in, because we use the parallel with elite lifters. And what we do is we train the brain, and in this case using shadowing, reading at the same time as listening to the content, at the same time as speaking aloud. The trouble is, if you just try and do that at full speed, using all those 3 things together, then you will become exhausted pretty quickly, and it really is a grind. And most language learners usually give up shadowing after trying it for a day or 2 because it's just too difficult. It feels exhausting. But there's a way of doing shadowing that you can maintain your gains without all of the problems of fatigue. And that's using this method of the conjugate system. So what are the 4 steps? So the first stage of this conjugate method is this. You listen and read to a piece of content that's about 90% comprehensible to you. That's a good figure to aim for, but you do it at 90% of the speed. So if you've got a speed adjuster on the app you're using to listen and to read the content at the same time, drop it down to about 90%. And what you do is you go through and carefully check all the meaning of the words to make sure you understand everything that's being said, and you go through that a few times. So you might do that over a couple of days. Stage 2 is you then add in the speaking. So still at 90% speed, but you're now listening while speaking and while reading at the same time. Those 3 things together, it's really critical that they're done at the same time. But this is at 90% speed. So the first times you've gone through that in stage 1, you've got the meaning of the words. You know what the text means. You understand it. But in the second stage, you're now starting to speak. So you're starting to train in kind of 3 directions all at once. Your ear, your eyes, kind of the information coming in, and then the speaking. You're starting to train the muscles in your mouth and throat to be able to produce the sounds. And training all those 3 parts of your brain at the moment has a compounding effect. It really does start to cement the language much, much better than just doing any one of those things on its own. So after doing stage 2 a few times, maybe a few days, you then move on to stage 3. And that is you drop the speaking temporarily. And what you do is you listen and read, but this time you bump the speed up to 120%, if you can handle 120. Some people can do 110, but you're increasing the speed of the natural native speaker in that content. And what you'll find is by speeding up the content, this isn't just about training you to follow the words faster. What you'll find is that because you have got the meaning of the individual words as you've gone through stage 1 and then stage 2, what will happen in stage 3 is that you will be going so fast over the lines that you won't have time to decode each individual word, and your brain will start to chunk those words together into sentences of meaning. You won't understand that quickly all of the words on their own, but you will get the meaning of that sentence. And that is critical, because to become fluent in a language, you must be able to chunk together meaning and produce it. This has a huge effect on your ability to then understand and become fluent later. So stage 4 is where you go back to full shadowing, which is you're listening whilst you're reading the content and then you're speaking out loud. The difference here for stage 4 is you're now at the normal speed, so 100% of the speed instead of 120 or 90% in the previous stages. And what you will find is that you are able to keep up with that content. You were able to shadow it where you could not do that before. This is the power of that method. And then when you start to come to produce your own fluency in terms of your own sentences that you start to put together when you're speaking to either a native or with AI or whichever method you're going to use, then you'll find that actually your speed of expression will become quicker. And when I've used this method, what I've tended to find is that just like this method teaches you to chunk sentences in meaning, when I'm producing sentences now, sometimes a sentence will just come out of my head and I'll reflect back and think, I know what that meant, but I don't know what the words were that came out my mouth. And sometimes I record what I'm saying so I can go back and listen to it. And the words were correct. I hadn't thought about those words. I thought about the meaning and the sentence just came out of my mouth because I'd shadowed it in this way enough times that it just stuck. So there you have it. This is the protocol. 4 simple stages, 1 system, and I think you'll be pleased with the results.